The morning my daughter threw my suitcase onto the lawn, the sky over Oregon was the color of wet cement. It had been threatening rain since dawn. A low mist hung over the fir trees lining our street, and the air smelled like pine and cold earth. I remember noticing how quiet the neighborhood was, no lawnmowers yet, no barking dogs, just the hollow thud of my old brown suitcase hitting the grass. I stood frozen in the doorway. "Dad," Leela said, her voice tight, "you're holding us back, it's time to leave." For a moment I didn't recognize her. Not the little girl who used to run barefoot through this same yard, shrieking with laughter as I chased her with the garden hose. Not the teenager who once sobbed into my chest after her first heartbreak. This woman in front of me, arms crossed, jaw clenched, looked like a stranger wearing my daughter's face. "I'm holding you back," I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. Behind her in the kitchen I could see Daniel, her husband, standing stiffly by the counter. He didn't look at me, he was staring at his phone like he wished he were anywhere else. "This house is too small," Leela continued. "We can't move forward like this, we need space, privacy, and we can't afford anything better while you're here." The words landed harder than the suitcase. I had moved in 2 years earlier after my construction business went under. A back injury had taken me off job sites, and medical bills swallowed whatever savings I had left. When Leela insisted I stay with her just until you're back on your feet, I'd resisted. "You raised me alone, Dad," she'd said. "Let me return the favor." I believed her then. I stepped out onto the porch, the wood creaking beneath my weight. The mist dampened my slippers, my suitcase lay on its side half open, shirt spilling into the grass. "Leela," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "we talked about this. I've been applying for remote jobs. I told you about the warehouse position in Salem." "That's 2 hours away," she snapped. "And it's part-time. We can't keep living like this, tiptoeing around you, rearranging everything for you." Tiptoeing around me. I thought about the nights I stayed in my room so they could have the living room to themselves. The dinners I skipped because Daniel needed quiet after work. The way I folded myself smaller and smaller inside a house I had helped paint, helped roof, helped turn from a fixer-upper into a home. Daniel finally looked up. "It's not personal," he said, though it felt exactly like that. "We just need to focus on building our future." Our future. I wanted to ask where I fit in that future. I wanted to remind them that I had once held Leela's tiny hand as we crossed streets, that I had packed her lunches and braided her hair badly for school plays, that I had missed promotions because I wouldn't work weekends, not when she had soccer games. Instead, I walked down the porch steps. The grass was cold beneath my feet as I picked up the suitcase. The zipper snagged on a thread from one of my flannel shirts. I tugged it free, the small act of repair feeling strangely symbolic. "I never meant to be a burden," I said. Leela's expression flickered. For a second I saw guilt there, then it hardened. "We're trying to start a family," she said. "We can't do that with you here." The words hit a place inside me I hadn't known was still tender. A grandchild. I had imagined teaching a little one how to fish in the Deschutes River, showing them how to skip stones. I had imagined sitting at this same kitchen table, watching Leela parent the way she had once been parented. But apparently, there wasn't room for that version of me. I carried the suitcase to my old pickup truck parked at the curb. The engine had been unreliable lately, coughing like an old smoker. I placed the suitcase in the bed and closed the tailgate slowly. "Where will you go?" Leela asked, her voice softer now. I shrugged. "I'll figure it out." Because that's what I had always done. When her mother left us, chasing a life in California that didn't include diapers and bills, I figured it out. When the recession dried up construction contracts, I figured it out. When my back gave out and I had to swallow pride along with painkillers, I figured it out. I climbed into the driver's seat. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, not from anger, but from the sudden realization that I had nowhere specific to drive to. As I pulled away, I caught a glimpse of Leela in the side mirror. She stood at the edge of the driveway, arms wrapped around herself. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. The mist turned to rain. I ended up in a motel off Highway 26, the kind with flickering neon and thin walls. The clerk didn't ask questions when I paid for 3 nights in cash. The room smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. No messages. I told myself it was for the best. They needed space, maybe this was temporary, maybe once the shock wore off, Leela would call. But as the hours stretched into evening, silence settled around me like dust. I thought about the day she was born, how I'd held her in a hospital room overlooking gray Portland skis. I had been terrified of failing her, of not being enough. I promised her then, silently, that I would always be there. Had I broken that promise by staying too long, or had she broken something by asking me to leave? On the second day at the motel, I drove to the coast. The Pacific was restless, waves crashing against dark rocks. I stood there for a long time, letting the wind whip through my thinning hair. I realized something uncomfortable. I had made Leela my entire world. After her mother left, it had been easier that way, safer. Every decision revolved around her, her school, her friends, her dreams. I never dated seriously, never built a life outside of being dad. And when she grew up and built her own world, I tried to fit into it instead of building my own. Maybe that was the weight she felt. On the third day, I called an old friend, Marcus, who ran a small hardware store in a town an hour inland. "You need work," he said. "I could use someone part-time, light-duty, inventory, customer service." It wasn't glamorous, it didn't pay much, but it was something. "I'll take it," I said. Marcus also knew of a small apartment above the store, nothing fancy but affordable. Within a week, I had moved in. The apartment had slanted ceilings and a window that looked out over the main street. On Saturdays, a farmer's market filled the sidewalks with laughter and fresh bread smells. For the first time in years, I was alone, not as an unwanted guest but as a man with his own space. I bought a second-hand armchair, a small coffee maker, a potted fern that I wasn't sure I could keep alive. I started walking every morning before work, feeling my back grow stronger. I met customers who remembered my name. I fixed loose screws in shelves, organized paint cans, gave advice to young couples renovating their first homes. Slowly, a different version of me emerged, not just Leela's father, not just a burden. 3 months passed. Leela didn't call. I almost dialed her number dozens of times. Each time, pride or maybe fear stopped me. Then one afternoon, as I was restocking hammers, my phone buzzed. Her name filled the screen. I stepped outside before answering. "Hi," I said, my voice rough. "Dad," she whispered. She was crying. My chest tightened. "What's wrong?" There was a long pause. "Daniel lost his job, the company downsized, we can't make the mortgage." I closed my eyes. "We're drowning," she continued, "and I don't know what to do." For a brief, shameful second, I felt something like vindication. They had wanted space, independence. But that feeling vanished quickly, replaced by something stronger: love. "Take a breath," I said gently. "We'll figure it out." "Wait." She inhaled shakily. "I'm sorry," she added, "for how I handled things. I was scared and I thought pushing you out would make everything simpler." "It's okay," I said, though the memory of the suitcase in the rain still stung. "We all make mistakes." That weekend, I drove back to the house. It looked smaller than I remembered. Leela opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes were red, her shoulders hunched. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said. "I know." We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where she'd once done homework while I cooked dinner. I helped them go through their finances, cut unnecessary expenses, called in a favor with a contractor friend who needed temporary help, something Daniel could manage until he found steady work. I didn't move back in. That part was important. "I've got my own place now," I told Leela, "and I like it." She looked surprised, then relieved. Over the next few months, things stabilized. Daniel found a new job, the house stayed theirs. And one Sunday afternoon, Leela invited me over for dinner. As we ate, she reached for my hand. "I thought independence meant doing everything alone," she said, "but maybe it just means standing on your own feet while knowing your family is still there." I squeezed her fingers. "I'm not holding you back," I said softly, "and you're not pushing me away anymore." Outside, Oregon's sky had cleared to a soft blue. We had both needed that storm. Not to break us, but to teach us how to stand separately and still remain connected. And this time when I left, it wasn't with a suitcase thrown onto the lawn. It was with a hug at the door and the quiet understanding that love doesn't shrink when you give someone space. Sometimes it grows.